Good morning.
Cognition critical.
I hadn't even planned to start this one with another explosion, but I had been preparing some new experiment over yonder, and in the middle of it I heard an explosion because the station had heated up so much that the smart canister was overpressured by the gas expanding, and that's what's happening to this one also. Let's keep it outside for now. Wait, will cool down a bit. Radiated at 10 joules. I wonder how cold this thing will get. Currently it's at almost 50 degrees Celsius. So I want to do an experiment with these two 5-box rooms, for which I need them evacuated, but I also need the pipe evacuated. Doesn't seem like a case for the kit pressure regulator, but rather for the kit liquid drain. Because it has the active liquid outlet, problem is I can't place it anywhere here because it needs some support. It can't just be stuffed onto a pipe. The kit pressure regulator, though, next to the pressure regulator and the back pressure regulator, also has the pressurant valve, which allows to pump gas into a liquid pipe. That's the opposite of what we need. And then we have the purge valve, which is what I'm trying to employ here. It pumps whatever's in the liquid pipe into the gas pipe. There. But will it get the job done? You see, while the pressurant valve's purpose is to pump gas into a liquid pipe, the purge valve's purpose is to remove gas and evaporated liquids, in other words gas, from a liquid pipe. But we have liquid in there. Will this get the job done? So let's turn this thing on. And nothing's happening. Why? Because it will lower the pressure of the gas in there to the set level. 950 kPa is below 1000. That's why we're not seeing anything. Now how about this? Something's happening. And we're getting some N2O here, obviously. Bit slow, but I don't care. I can just pause. You can see that the temperature is dropping. Is that because there's a vacuum here? The window is open, you know? Only a little bit of N2O that's being pumped out? No, the reason is that the liquids in there are boiling off. They are evaporating. And that always cools down, like in reality. Well, the opposite is, if you pressurize it enough to become liquid, that will heat it up. Or you can just cool down the temperature, I guess, to make it become a liquid. This will also heat it up. Funny enough. If we look at the phase change diagram of nitrous oxide, we see that below minus 20-ish degrees, it will freeze. And frozen gas is bad for any kind of pipe. So it seems like this approach will bring us into a problematic situation. You also see that the pressure isn't really lowering. Why? Because the pressure is being replenished by the N2O evaporating. You can see that here these squiggly lines. The opposite, when it condenses, looks like little drops, like rain is falling down. So that is very helpful. Yeah, there's no hope of doing this properly because 2,600 moles. That's the absolute amount of stuff in there. Basically the amount of molecules multiplied by a large number, because obviously we don't have 2,000 molecules in there because they're so tiny. Yeah, and above there we see the ratio. You understand that, of course, but the moles are the absolute number. So it doesn't matter if you heat it up or change the ratio of gases in there. The absolute amount doesn't change if you don't change it. Anyway, okay, this purge valve approach, nope, doesn't work. But you have just seen that this can be used for cooling. So 10 minutes later, how is our oxygen canister doing? 44, 45 degrees, nothing much happening. But it is cooling. Almost minus 20. Well, let's try the active liquid outlet then. Maybe that helps. Oh, it does. It does help. It's all coming out. The gas, the liquid, all of it. Okay, but it's okay. We're also getting frozen stuff. Not good. Just in time. Yeah, of course, the lower the pressure was, the more rapidly it was cooling, because there was less energy left in the gas. Now with that out of the way, something like the pressure regulators also exists for liquid pipes. the liquid volume regulator and the liquid back volume regulator. It doesn't go by pressure, but by the amount of liters. If the capacity is like 20 liters and I set it to 100, then 20 liters would be in there, I think. What I'll be trying to do is I'm going to try to use phase change to cool this room and heat that room, or vice versa, just by adjusting the settings of this liquid volume regulator and this liquid volume regulator, which are in basically a symmetrical pipe. Everything is insulated except these pipes are normal and have some radiators on them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Same on the other side. And now let's fill the stuff with gases. Meanwhile, our oxygen canister has cooled down from 45 to 41 degrees, just by radiation in the vacuum. So the experiment has been set up. The airlock is cycled, so this room is now 5 boxes like the other one is. We have 300 moles of oxygen here and 300 moles of oxygen there. You can see the temperatures are slightly different, the pressure also, because I mean, it's irritating that it's saying room 6 in both cases, but maybe you have already tried to lean through a window with a tablet in hand, and then you saw the other room's number, possibly. Like in this case, we also see the other room's number on the right, even though what's being measured is actually the room that we're standing in, or in this case, where the table is standing in. I think that's how we have to think about this. Anyway, the measurements are correct. Why is it warmer in here? I don't know. Maybe it's the amount of lights or whatever. We can't look at the numbers this precisely. And here's our pipe network. On this side, we have almost capacity liters of pollutant at 20 degrees exactly. Neat trick. And here we have the other pipe network. Oh, where is it? Here. And there's nothing in there. So let's see what happens if we adjust these regulators. Cooling down a lot. Why? Well, there's very little pollutant liquid in there now, but we need some pressure. Why do we need some pressure? This is the phase change diagram of water in the game. In reality, it's quite different. For example, if the pressure is, you can see the mouse pointer here, if it is 0, then it can still be frozen solid. But in the game that's not so. If the pressure is too low, it will just evaporate. So if you put some liquid, I mean in this case water, but it works just the same for pollutant also, into a pipe, some of it will evaporate until the pressure in the pipe has reached some level where it can be liquid in the first place. And since evaporation cools the substance down, what we're getting here is some cooling effect. And now it's heating up. Why? Because the room is cooling down. The room is exchanging its thermal energy with the pipe. What's happening in the other room? Nothing much. I mean, 20.5, you can assume nothing really has happened due to our pipe thingy here. Let's turn on the other side also to 1%. Well, nothing much is happening because we already have these 1%. Then let's turn this side higher. Oh, that's not good. Maybe I should have done that slower. Now it's being compressed by the heat, which means that it will heat up by condensing. What's happening to the other side? It's cooling down. Because in this pipe now we have this phenomenon of too little water that is evaporating. So that the pressure is high enough so that it can even be liquid in the first place. That's the simplified simulation of this game. Yeah, simplified. I know. I don't know what's happening here. So let's start over. I don't know what happened there. I didn't twiddle a button or something. I just waited half a minute and was thinking about stuff and then it exploded. I don't know. So now we have kind of the same setup again. The pressure is kind of the same. Here it's slightly warmer. And in this pipe we now have much less pollutant. So let's see what happens now. Yep, Pressure is increasing by pollutant evaporating and thus cooling down, thus cooling the room. In the other room it doesn't care because I set this to 1% and it already has 1%. But now we have more room to play. I guess it exploded because I had set the ratio to 100%, and maybe that in combination with the pressure just, overpressurized the pipe. So it's 10% then. Now it's heating up, possibly because the amount of liquid I'm pushing in there is, I don't know actually. Maybe it's just because the room is heating it up also. On the other side now we have less. I wonder if it's constantly pumping. Interesting. 16 degrees in here. 21 degrees in there. And both rooms are 21.6 and 16.8. So somehow we got rid of some heat, even though it's just a loop. So I just set this to 50%, which is much more than 1%. Other side also. Maybe we have some cycle going on, whatever that is really doing, since it's completely symmetrical. I guess it's just chaos. So now I set it to 1% for the other room, and for this room I set it to 90%. All the liquids are coming over here. And the other room should now cool down, I guess, because the liquid should be decreasing and thus it should be boiling off and thus cool down. Well, certainly it is decreasing in amount of liquid and it is decreasing in temperature. Should theoretically also even accelerate, I think. On the other hand, the room would be slowing that down, because it's attached to the pipe's temperature with all the radiators. In here it's getting warmer, and the other room is cooling down. Now it's the other way around? So clearly phase change is a very complex issue, but we know for certain that when it heats up and when it cools down. But how to handle it? Well, I guess we have been doing it wrong. There's an actual phase change device in Stationeers which has a liquid pipe connector and a gas pipe connector, and we have an evaporation chamber, so where things would get colder, and a condensation chamber which does the opposite. Here we have the condensation chamber. It has a gas heat exchange connection because the idea is of course to transfer some thermal energy, and since this is the condensation chamber it would heat things up. So then we put a pipe here with some radiators, and then we need to connect it to the other device, which is the evaporation chamber, which also has a gas heat exchange connection. This one would then be cooling down, like this. Both devices also have a gas input connection and output connection, and a liquid output and liquid input connection. Makes sense. Okay, so what else is missing? Probably some gas to work with. I must have taken a wrong turn. So here's the entire setup. All pipes are still evacuated. I set the values here to 2000 kPa, 2 megapascals on both devices, meaning that this is the pressure inside the chamber that they will aim to achieve, and as long as that pressure hasn't yet been reached, I believe they will not output whatever they have there. So let's see what happens. So I just added a lot of liquid pollutant to this pipe. You can see the needles going down. Pressure was set to 2000. Oh, stress is building. What is the other device doing? The evaporation chamber where things should cool down, and yeah, they're cooling down, minus 55 degrees already. Set to 2 megapascals. What if I increase this to 3? Oh. Pressure increases. Amount of liquid decreases. I could be mistaken, but I think it's cooling down even more, which would make sense. I'm saying give me 3 megapascals, so it would say, well, we need more gas for that, because pressure is ever only gas, never liquid, so we will have more evaporation. And evaporation means cooling. So that's the evaporation chamber. Outputting gas that goes here into the input connection of the condensation chamber, where it can then liquefy. Not sure if that's currently happening. Well, for whatever reason we don't have any liquids here right now. I guess what I have to do is I have to reduce the pressure here, because less pressure means less gas, which means more liquid is remaining. Liquid is increasing. So what's happening on the other end? Aha, we have liquid pollutant again. So it's a tricky thing to keep that in balance, that thing. Oh, stress is building. Not good. What can we do about this? If that did something, it didn't do the right thing. Neither. Well, I should definitely reduce the pressure of this thing, because this is supposed to be the condensation chamber, yet I set the pressure so high that, well, it needs to be evaporating and it is cooling down. Now the amount of liquid is increasing, and so is the temperature, and that's the idea with this device. Let's see what the other one's doing. Very cold. Still boiling off liquid. We seem to be having a cooling cycle here. There's only nothing happening yet. Room temperature is 40 degrees, because this pipe network here for the heat exchangers in both devices is completely separate. It's only for thermal energy. It doesn't have any gas connection to the system. So let's add some gas in there. 6 megapascals of oxygen in this little pipe. And the room is accordingly cooling down, and of course the chamber is heating up. Quasi. Let's add some more gas. Room is cooling down, of course, taking the cold from the chamber. Now onto the other one. That's the chamber, still heating up like it should, and the pipe is still empty. Now there's gas in there. The room will now be heated up. Theoretically. It was already very hot. So the condensation chamber is producing heat, and the evaporation chamber is reducing heat, just like it's meant to be. Let's let this run for a while. 3 minutes later, the room is still cooling down at minus 7 degrees already, not bad. The chamber is still at negative degrees and still cooling down. I don't quite get the dynamics here. I mean, why is it not like balancing out? Anyway, 50 degrees in the other room. Let's let this sit for a while longer. 62 degrees in here after like 10 minutes maybe. So with the setting of 1 megapascal here, we still have 4 megapascals. I believe this is the lower setting, as in if I set this to 500 and the device is at 300, it will try to reach 500. But I guess the amount of pollutant that I added to this system was too much from the get-go. The other one is also set to 1000. Room is at -14. Kinda stable. And so yeah, that's what these do. They cost 50 watts each, so 100 watts are currently being used to cool this room down from it had about 20 degrees to -14. And the other one, which I don't know where it was, let's see what happens if we break down this wall, because the room beyond is very hot. -90 degrees, however that happened. Well, the room's too hot, the device cannot keep up. And this one, the partner, is of course getting a lot hotter now. I wonder how far we can drive this. But ultimately we're talking about a differential between the two. So if the whole thing shifts upwards, then, well, the whole thing shifts upwards. Mm-hmm, 25 degrees. Oh, singing pipes, what's happening? It's just the heat exchange pipe. Pipe network here is fine. But overall, yeah, too much substance, too much pressure. That's better. Same on this side. Keeps heating up. What about the liquid? Is it decreasing or increasing? Well, what matters really is that we have a cycle of evaporation and condensation going on. But do we? 96 degrees, goddamn. It keeps heating up, so it seems to be flowing the temperature, and therefore we seem to be having a cycle, else this wouldn't happen. The pressure here is too high. I need to add some inline tank. This will change the behavior of the entire system, I guess. How much, though? The room keeps cooling down. Will it keep cooling down? Is the question. Anyway, here we have a chamber at 50 degrees Celsius. And here we have one at 170, and all that just by phase change, condensation and evaporation. That's pretty cool. Or hot. Let's let this whole thing sit for a while. Did I stop the recording? Oh, I didn't. What the fuck? 65 degrees. Doesn't get any colder because the heat dump that this room has become is just so hot by now that the differential would be too great. Nothing more can be done. For demonstration purposes, I will change this room's atmosphere to something cold now. There, 2 degrees and rising fast. Not a surprise. But the heat exchange part is also cooling down, and what about the thing itself? Also cooling down. In other words, with this phase change device system, we have a heat pump. It pumps the heat from here to over there. Cooled it down further for experimentation. Ah, what the heck. There. Arguably, this could also have been achieved by just having a pipe here and over there with radiators, but this thing is still creating a differential. And that's the idea, just like an AC device does, but probably a lot stronger, I would assume. We would have to measure this. Well, the room has become quite cooler. But is it worth the effort? 32 degrees Celsius here, or 30 degrees, and 40 degrees over here. That's not quite the differential, for which I would go through all these motions. Of 55. Okay, 20 degrees difference. Maybe we should wait a bit, or do I need to adjust them some more? 1 megapascal and set to 1 megapascal. Theoretically, if I turn this higher, then this has more pressure to build up, and that means evaporation, which means cooling. And yeah, it's cooling down. Oh, okay, I thought it was cooling down. Seems to be kind of breathing. Goes up, goes down. Well, something's certainly wrong. I mean, the condensation chamber is supposedly condensing something, but no liquids inside, and the liquid pipe is also almost completely empty. So I turn this down again to 1000. What happens then? Not much different. It is at 1 megapascal anyway. I don't get these things, man. Okay, this guy is in command. At least now. 0 kilopascals, and it's trying to have no pressure of gas in there. And it's cooling down a lot. Interesting. And in the other one we can find some buildup of pollutant again, liquid I mean. And the pipe is also increasing in this regard. So after about 3 minutes, that's what we see. Very hot chamber, the room is also very hot. Some liquid. 6 megapascals here. Liquids for whatever reason. At least here we have some liquid, but much too little. And here the evaporation chamber. Lots of liquid pollutant. I mean, it's the opposite of what we want. So, let's turn it up to 500. Radically cooling down, yeah, like it should when it evaporates. But does that help the overall cycle, or is this just a band-aid for a few seconds? Well, the device is getting hotter. 95.1, 95.2, even though the other device is only at 36 degrees, so we have quite some temperature differential there. Seriously, I'm not sure if this is worth the entire effort, but I'm pretty sure also that I'm doing it wrong. So this was supposed to become episode 5 of this whole tutorial series, but in this state I cannot make this a tutorial. This is just, you know, to show you around and to show you some experimentation. This will not be part of the series, so I repurpose this. And that's all for now.